And also want to welcome in Pasadena, California, former gang homicide detective Donald Schweitzer. Great to have you both on the show. John, let me begin with you, if I may, please. Tell us more, if you will, about that emergency session that you went to today.
It was supposed to be a performative act. It actually happened about a day and a half ago, but it was supposed to be a performative act where the city council had a quorum to then agree by consensus to extend its disaster declaration, which enables it to accept state aid from the state of Texas. State of Texas has rushed in there. It's providing all sorts of emergency services. We were all wondering if embattled School District Police Chief Pete Arredondo was going to show up, because he is also a newly minted city council member. He was a no-show. So that's why we were paying attention to that particular meeting, to see if he might show up, because until that article in the Texas Tribune, he has been silent.
Right. Speaking of that, Donald Schweitzer, let me bring you in on that point. We were just talking with one of the writers of that article, reporter from the Texas Tribune, James Barragan, and he got this exclusive interview with the chief, and we know that many in the piece of journalism that they put forth were very critical. Many law enforcement experts, you yourself are one. Tell me, was there anything about what the chief did that day that you find highly improper?
Well, you know, it depends on if you're talking about improper for a typical police chief in a small town in America. You know, this town was only 15,000 people, a very tiny police department. And let's be real here, is that most chiefs of police are not commanding officers on scenes like this. They're more administrators. They're people that are not really trained to do this. He made a lot of mistakes, without a doubt. He should have set up a command post. He should have had his radio. He should have set a perimeter. But don't think that there's going to be different results throughout America if something like this happens again. You need a well-trained force to go in there rapidly. And unfortunately, small towns like this don't have the funds or the real ability to respond quickly and make the decisions for a crisis entry. This chief, I'm sure, had no idea as to how to make that decision and whether or not it would be the right decision at the time.
I appreciate it, Donald Schweitzer. John Moan, back to you, if I may, please. I know you're there on the ground talking to a lot of different people, I would imagine a lot of parents. Share with us, if you would, please, the kinds of things that they're sharing with you at this point.
I think, look, as we have this drip, drip, drip of information about what was wrong about the initial account, and now this new narrative from Pete Arredondo, there is a growing sense of confusion, but also burgeoning anger. Confusion as to why did it take so long, and then anger, you probably could have done something had you gave an order to interdict faster. And I think most people that I've spoken to have come to the conclusion that there was no command nor control of the situation, even if you had the Uvalde CISD cops there, as well as the local police from Uvalde, as well as you had federal agents, you had Border Patrol there, you had the DPS troopers there. It didn't seem to be that to anybody I've talked to, whether they're a community member at arm's length from this tragedy or a parent directly connected to it, that there was any command or control of the situation. People were confused. I mean, you know, they're willing to give the benefit of the doubt, but they're certainly growing angrier the more they hear about what's going on. Another thing I should add is, like your experts, I reached out to various retired and active law enforcement officials at the local level, even at the federal level, and they were all befuddled why the police chief didn't bring his police radio. One even saying, any police officer is perfectly capable of keeping that radio on their person while drawing a firearm.
I appreciate that, John. Detective Schweitzer, I want to ask you, please, about something the chief said in that interview with the Texas Tribune, and that was that he never thought he was the incident commander. Your thoughts on that, please?
Well, obviously, he was the highest ranking officer there, and he should just look around and say, hey, is there anybody here that I've appointed to do that? You know, typically in a police department, you're going to have people that are designated for that purpose. In the larger departments, you're going to have SWAT teams arrive, and you're going to have a clear commander. But in a small town like this, he was the commanding officer. It was his duty to take charge.
Mm-hmm. Looking at these pictures, I mean, it's just beyond heartbreaking. It's unthinkable, yet it happened, and people want answers. John, tell me, in your talks with various folks throughout the community there. What comes next? What are they sharing with you in terms of what's next? Today, tomorrow, next week?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Look, we cover these tragedies on a national scope. We come in, we put a microscope on the pain, and then when we retreat and we're doing more digging into the details of the story, life has to go on for these folks. And one of the big issues is mental health. Here's a county that has a distinct lack of access to mental health because you've got in as much as 25% of people who live in Uvalde County, according to the U.S. Census data from 2020, are uninsured or underinsured, probably even more. You also have a 19% poverty rate. So there's everyday struggles for those parents. Maybe some of them are working 2 or 3 jobs or working very long hours, and school is where their children go to learn, but it's also gives the parents the lifeline so they can go work. Well, now you have a situation where if the parents haven't been, burying their own children, you also have parents who are dealing with traumatized kids and they don't know where to go to look for therapy. So you have very much a town with an open wound, whether you're directly affected by this tragedy or you're somebody who knew another person, and the degrees of separation, go on and on. There is a gaping wound in the Uvalde community, and a lot of that is about, learning about the pain people felt even before this tragedy happened.
Very well said, John. Thank you for that. Detective Schweitzer, to you, in terms of what the police department there can learn from this, or what other departments around the country can learn, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, it's a cry that's been made throughout the decades. I mean, police departments are inadequately ready for these type of situations. I mean, even fairly larger departments are. They need to think about having a rapid force and have contingency plans for this. Small departments, middle-sized departments, they're not training for this. And this would be a good lesson that, you have to organize quickly and have some type of a plan. If you go in there without a plan, you're going to get the same result every time.
Certainly, and to train, there needs to be adequate funding. I can't thank you both enough for coming on the program and sharing all of your insight. John Moan, Donald Schweitzer, thank you both kindly for being with us tonight here on Closing Arguments.